10 Best Alien Crossovers. When two films are similar in tone, story, and atmosphere, or when they have protagonists or antagonists that blend well, we get that opportune moment when producers decide to make a crossover. Often crossovers come to life when production houses buy two particular franchises. However, these events are rare because crossovers are not only expensive but also a precarious business. The world of comics, nevertheless, is entirely different. Therefore, it's easier to lay hands on crossover comics. Naturally, the great Aliens and Predators franchises have had the luxury of a plethora of crossovers with DC characters like Batman, Superman, Green Lantern, as well as others like Witchblade and Darkness. In this video, we shall take a closer look at some of the most famous original Alien crossovers. So let's cut to the chase, shall we? Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Number 1. Batman/Aliens. This 2-issue comic was published in 1997 by DC Comics and Dark Horse Comics and was written by Ron Marz. It was made public after Aliens incubation and was followed by a sequel, Batman/Aliens 2, in 2002. Batman in his nocturnal lifestyle had faced many forms of terror. He spent nights grappling with all forms of psychopaths, killers, criminals whose inner psyche was as unhinged as their outward appearances. He thought he knew what the heart of terror and fear looked like. He thought he had known the soul of horror. But Batman's concept of horror was about to change forever because he was about to face the truest and most unique form of horror: alien infestation in the Mayan ruins. While everything that the Dark Knight does is aimed at the protection of life, everything that the aliens do was aimed at the propagation of their species through death and destruction. When these two forces meet, the clash would be similar to what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object. Are you ready to learn the dynamics of the battle between Batman and Alien? When a Wayne Enterprises geologist goes missing near the border of Guatemala and Mexico, Batman leaves Gotham and reaches the place to look for the employee. There he meets with an American special ops team that's been in hot pursuit of a lethal target, but their hunt has so far been unsuccessful. Batman and the special ops team learn about the ferocity of the Xenomorphs when they suddenly get attacked by them. Several team members die in the ensuing carnage by these intergalactic killing machines, but Batman manages to study the Xenomorph life cycle. He then goes on to collect a couple of facehuggers in jars and moves ahead with the search. Naturally, Batman has a new mission at hand. The leader of the special ops team sacrifices himself to blow up an alien hive, and his death leaves only Batman and 2 other soldiers alive. They deduce that it was best to leave the place for now and return another day with more firepower and workforce to take down the ruthless creatures. They make their way to the evacuation point, but isn't that too easy a getaway for a Batman story? Keep watching to know more. One of the survivors, named Hyatt, was an extremely ambitious woman who yearned for recognition and respect. She left one of her teammates for dead with one of the surviving Xenomorphs and ambushed the Batman on her own. She held him at gunpoint and retrieved the jar in which Batman kept the facehugger sample, as well as the voice recorder of the Wayne Enterprises geologist that held important information about the Xenomorphs. She wished to take the news of the Xenomorph infestation to the United States government herself. Furthermore, she believed that the Xenomorphs were formidable creatures and nothing short of apex biological weapons. However, she was so involved with Batman that she failed to notice a giant Xenomorph hybrid created by the impregnation of a crocodile. The giant hybrid slashed Hyatt and she bled to death. The structure on which Batman and the croc alien stood was constructed above a volcanic pit. Batman manages to make the hybrid bleed just enough to melt the larger part of the structure, and once he is sure enough that the structure and the crocodile alien would fall into the lava pit, he flees from the spot using his batarang. Batman decides to never tell the world about the Xenomorphs, as he feared that many would want to weaponize these monsters that people didn't fully comprehend. Number 2. Judge Dredd vs. Aliens Incubus. The 4-part comic titled Judge Dredd vs. Aliens Incubus was jointly published by Rebellion and Dark Horse Comics in the year 2002 in Rebellion's 2000 AD magazine. Written by John Wagner and Andy Diggle, this comic basically served as a sequel to the 1997 comic Predator vs. Judge Dredd. The tenacious and eponymous Judge Dredd has faced beasts of all kinds, from mutants and supernaturals to enemies like Judge Death. But can Judge Dredd and a few other judges fight the age-ruling Xenomorphs? The comic pits the world's finest upholders of law against nature's perfect killing machines. Will the judges be able to protect Mega City 1 from becoming a breeding ground of the vicious creatures? We are about to find out. A shootout in the middle of a busy street catches the attention of a few judges. An anti-judicial activist named Carlos Lenning is seen in hot pursuit of a crook named James Godber, who heads straight towards Eisenhower Hospital. But as soon as Godber arrives at the hospital, a chest burster bursts out of his body, tearing his ribs apart. Upon learning about the incident, Judge Dredd gets on the case and calls in the Verminator team to follow up on Godber and his known associates. The exceptional Terminators named Verminators begin their investigation and seal the hospital. The judges come to know that Godber was playing with forces that he didn't truly understand. He intended to use the Xenomorphs in wagering and pit fighting to earn some quick bucks. At his warehouse, they find several Xenomorph eggs, facehugger husks, etc. Suddenly, a facehugger hatches out of its egg and latches on to Judge Brubaker's face. The judges learn that they seriously underestimated the threat at hand as the Xenomorph takes control of the situation. Bodies start piling up in Mega City 1 and Eisenhower Hospital, making the judges realize that there may be more than a few aliens on the loose in the futuristic metropolis. Next, we meet the architect of the entire mishap, Mr. Bones, through Lenning's driver Futzy. Bones discloses his plans to Futzy about an event that he calls the Incubus. He had previously come across the Xenomorphs when he used to be a space pirate. He captured some of them and brought them to Mega City 1 to exact his revenge on the judges. Furthermore, there existed a hive underneath the city patiently waiting to be unleashed. The next step in Mr. Bones' plan was to unleash the aliens into the Grand Hall of Justice, and he's been cultivating them just beneath it. The judges were having a hard time dealing with the alien infestation in Mega City 1, but Judge Giant manages to activate the robo-judges to turn the tides. Bones was only partially successful in his plan because Judge Sanchez is abducted by the aliens despite the robo-judges forcing them to retreat underground. When Judge Dredd goes to save Sanchez, both of them get infected. Dredd and Sanchez will now have to find a way to save themselves or they'll simply be killed by a chestburster. They manage to escape, and on their way out, they discover the Queen and her innumerable ovomorphs. Dredd and Sanchez, along with Packer, manage to destroy the hive by making use of the magma from a nearby geothermal heating plant. Judge Dredd and Sanchez get their chestbursters removed just before they could erupt. Although technically speaking, it is a rather difficult and almost impossible process to successfully remove a chestburster and save the victim as well. Number 3. Wildcats/Aliens. The one-shot Wildcats/Aliens comic was published in 1988 by Image Comics and Dark Horse Comics, written by Warren Ellis. Wildcats/Aliens was followed by Overkill, Witchblade/Aliens/Darkness/Predator, another epic crossover that we will discuss in this video. In the comics, the Wildcats swing into action when an escape pod carrying Stormwatch Agent Flint crashes in New York. The team teleports to Skywatch only to find themselves in the midst of a disaster zone, surrounded by Xenomorphs. The Wildcats will have one hell of a time trying to get the survivors and themselves to safety. But with Stormwatch's fall, what would their fate turn out to be? Let's find out in this horror and sci-fi slugfest. After Flint's escape pod crash-landed in New York, he was rescued and debriefed by Grifter and Void. Flint tells them that an unknown and gruesome alien species had taken over Stormwatch and infested the space facility Skywatch. Grifter presumes that these aliens were Daemonites and assembled the original Wildcats team to launch a rescue mission. But Grifter and the others are in for a massive shock and a sight filled with unimaginable horror. Void teleports Wildcats into space to Skywatch, where they discover security footage and video logs. These images explain the entire ordeal faced by the space station, including the sequence of events leading up to the attack. The Skywatch science team detects a mysterious asteroid passing from a relatively close distance. They immediately dispatch several ships with scientists to get the surface samples from the asteroid and plant explosives on it so that the asteroid would change its course towards the sun. However, Skywatch loses all contact with the scientists, but sometime later, the ship returned to the base. The Wildcats grasp that these ships were loaded with Xenomorphs who came on board from the asteroid. The Xenomorphs immediately initiate their hunt and butcher several crew members, impregnating the others with facehuggers. The superhuman team of Stormwatch tries to fight these intergalactic killing machines but ultimately fail. However, the Wildcats manage to locate a group of survivors, including Winter, Christine Trelane, and Jackson King, and 96 others. The Wildcats seek help from Void, who teleports them back to Earth. However, Winter decides to stay behind so that he could pilot Skywatch and crash it into the sun, because that was the only way to ensure that the Xenomorphs didn't escape or spread on Earth. Number 4. Aliens/Vampirella. This 6-issue comic was published in 2015 by Dynamite Entertainment and Dark Horse Comics, who also published it digitally. Written by Karina Bechko, the comic revolves around Vampirella, who despite being a vampire is a moral and just being who works in tandem with humans. She and a few humans investigate a cave because there was reason to believe that something suspicious was going on in there. They find that the cave housed several xenomorph eggs. The human proximity triggers the ovomorph and several facehuggers break out of the eggs to attack the rather unsuspecting hosts. Humans colonize Mars, but they are unaware of the secrets that the Red Planet had hidden within its depths. Something sinister had gotten there first and remained trapped in the Ferris caves. Care to venture a guess? Yes, it's none other than the Xenomorphs. Vampirella, the vampiric superheroine, goes inside the caves with other humans to find herself surrounded by the ancient creatures. Here she picks up that some monsters should be left unbothered in their state. The movement of humans awakens the ovomorphs present in the cave, and the Martian base becomes ground zero of a bloody massacre. As the events progress, Vampirella finds it difficult to gain complete trust of her human friends because of her nature and the blood that runs in her veins. Somehow, Vampirella and a Martian colleague named Lars get trapped in an ancient base beneath the surface, due to which their contact from the surface gets terminated. Lars and Vampirella have to fend for themselves in the fight of their lives, but Lars still finds it difficult to trust her. A royal facehugger impregnates Vampirella, and the resultant chestburster comes out as a xenomorph queen. Everyone else dies, but Vampirella survives due to her healing abilities. The Red Planet is painted even redder owing to the blood spillage. Meanwhile, the vampiric queen proves to be a formidable opponent. Amidst the crisis, Vampirella finds that the ancient Nosferatu has awakened, but will he help her to save humanity and fight the aliens? Interestingly enough, we get to see another vampire and xenomorph hybrid in the comic Buffy the Vampire Slayer. In space, no one can hear you slay, that we have on this list. Number 5. Superman vs. Aliens. This 3-issue comic was published in 1995 by DC Comics and Dark Horse Comics and was written and penciled by Dan Jurgens. It also had a sequel in 2002 titled Superman vs. Aliens 2: God War. So, the Man of Steel came to Earth from another planet and became Earth's savior. When he learns about signals from outer space, he sees a possibility that they might be coming from his planet Krypton. Will the son of Krypton be able to travel to his home planet? Even if he does, are his journey and destination free from obstacles? Many amazing things happen in this master crossover between the powerful Kryptonian and the most feared beasts of doom in the galaxy. In an attempt to improve its public image, LexCorp starts working with the good guys and takes part in activities such as investigating incoming probes. Clark accompanies the head of LexCorp's space division, Dr. Cheryl Kimball, only to discover Kryptonian distress calls. This was something Superman had been longing for his entire life, and he was certain that this time nothing would stop him from getting to know more about his lineage, his home. He makes contact with the pod sending the signals and receives some form of telepathic transmissions about an ancient city in another world. The planet was destroyed, but the city survived, only to find itself gasping for natural resources. Superman takes a ship and leaves to investigate the city of Argo in Krypton. However, it is located far away from the yellow nurturing sun of our solar system, and the longer Superman stays away, the weaker he becomes. He discovers a group of unconscious people and decides to send them back in his own ship to LexCorp space station. Sometime later, a Xenomorph attacks an already weak Superman. The creature brutally wounds him, but a girl named Kara saves him from imminent death. Kara tells him how the Xenomorphs had arrived to Argo in a crash-landed freighter years ago and wreaked havoc on the city. Meanwhile, the survivors that Superman had sent back to the LexCorp satellite were already impregnated with the Xenomorph chestbursters. As the ship reached its destination, the chestbursters erupted out of the people and attacked the LexCorp satellite. Lois Lane would have died if she didn't open the airlock to force a Xenomorph into outer space. On the other hand, Kimball is determined that she would capture one of the aliens and study them, but her plans don't come to fruition. Back in Argo, Kara and Superman attempt to escape the bloodbath, but both of them get impregnated with royal chestburster embryos. This becomes a blessing in disguise because now that Superman had a royal chestburster embryo in him, no alien would dare hurt him. They reach the abandoned freighter that had brought the Xenomorphs to Argo. There they find escape pods, but their mechanism seems to be jammed. The only way to release them was by blowing the entire ship up. Superman manages to teleport Kara's chestburster out of her using the ship's teleporter device, but Kara gets attacked and snatched away by Xenomorphs just before the ship's explosion and the escape pods launch. Superman arrives back at Earth just in time for his powers to be restored to 100%. This event allows him to trap and kill the chestburster inside him, after which he regurgitates it out of his body. He manages to save Kimball and Lane, but mourns Kara's presumed death. She was the closest thing to his sister, but what he doesn't know is that Kara managed to get inside another escape pod just before the explosion. Number 6. Aliens vs. Predator vs. Terminator. This 4-issue comic was published in 2000 by Dark Horse Comics and written by Mark Schultz. The comic revolves around an evil supercomputer named Skynet, which is hell-bent on the extermination of humans. Furthermore, it starts splicing human DNA with that of the Xenomorphs to create deadly Terminator-Xenomorph hybrids. Earth's only chance at survival resides with Ellen Ripley and an unlikely alliance with another terrifying race, the Predators. What will the end of this war look like with 3 deadly beings as its stakeholders? Not to forget that all of them love a good fight. The comic begins with a community that resides in sewers where people are looking for a decrepit woman. The woman attacks the people who find her, but stops when Annalee Call introduces herself, who is later revealed to be the clone of Ellen Ripley from Alien Resurrection. Call takes Ripley to her base, where Call informs her of a military operation on the science station named Typhoon. The project was led by Dr. Trollenberg and involved the creation of a hybrid alien super soldier. However, Trollenberg was far from nice and kills General Helm, who wanted to terminate the project because Trollenberg asked for cybernetic parts for his project. Meanwhile, all request Ripley to join the mission to stop Trollenberg, but Ripley is in despair and doesn't seem interested. She joins anyway after Call blackmails her. Meanwhile, a Predator reaches Typhoon just as Call, Ripley, and others arrive. To everyone's surprise, the Predator kills Trollenberg only to be chased by a super soldier. However, the super soldier catches up with the Predator and manages to kill it. In their fight, Call and Ripley learn that the artificial being was a sink for taking damage and impervious to practically any form of an attack. Furthermore, he can absorb metal to regenerate after taking damage. Typhoon explodes in this fight between a manufactured monster and nature's apex predator, but Call, Ripley, and the others manage to escape. The super soldier, however, gets on board a pod and takes some Xenomorph chestbursters with himself to work on creating another super soldier. Through an interactive recording of the protagonist of the Terminator franchise, John Connor, they learn about the existence of a Skynet resurrection program according to which Terminator models called Crypto-Terminators would attempt to take over the Earth and maybe even other worlds. To add insult to injury, a Predator ship approaches them and abducts Ripley. Meanwhile, the making of the second super soldier has been completed. Interestingly enough, the Predators don't kill or even harm Ripley. Instead, they offer her a chance to fight and die alongside them. It's quite evident that the Predators understand the balance of life in the universe and were trying to maintain that balance. They give her weapons and the ceremonial war paint. The battle culminates on Black Asteroid, where all the parties converge. The Predators and Ripley reach Black Asteroid Station to find that the super soldiers have multiplied and these new ones were additionally invincible and deadly. So much so that the self-destruct device of the Predators is rendered useless. Ripley uses her intellect and releases a horde of aliens onto the super soldiers. The Predators make quick use of this opportunity and begin heavy firing on the super soldiers, but a few of them manage to escape and Ripley promises Call to pursue and kill them. However, Ripley dies fighting the last of the super soldiers and the comic ends with Call eulogizing Ellen Ripley. Number 7. Green Lantern vs. Aliens. This 4-issue comic was published in 2000 by Dark Horse Comics and was written by Ron Marz. Hal Jordan will remain one of the most extraordinary lanterns ever to patrol the depths of space and don the magnificently potent power ring. In one of his adventures, he faces the dreaded Xenomorphs, nature's ultimate executioners. However, Hal chose to contain the evil instead of exterminating it. Years later, Kyle Rayner takes up Hal's mantle and faces the same foes once again. Will he be able to finish what Hal started? Even if he does, will he be able to see a happy ending? We shall know in a moment. The story begins in a flashback when the Green Lantern of Sector 1522, Baron Char, dies of a chestburster eruption from his body. The Guardians of the Universe summon Hal Jordan to team up with fellow Green Lanterns on the planet of Tirama. Hal Jordan meets with the Green Man Salak, Kilowog, Tomar-Re, and Katma-Tui on Tirama. The 6 of them are told about Brian Char's disappearance and they head to the point where he was last seen. They trace his displaced ring in a cavern where they find Baron Char's corpse and get attacked by hordes of Xenomorphs. Hal Jordan sees the Xenomorphs as the space equivalent of sharks. He doesn't think of them as psychologically evil, but simply perfect killing machines. Killing them would be a waste of a magnificent species, so he transports them to the sentient Green Lantern planet called Mogo, where they wouldn't be able to harm anyone. But as fate would have it, the Xenomorphs wouldn't be left alone. 10 years later, a transport vessel by the name of the Signet Dawn crashes into the planet of Mogo. Learning about this, 5 extraterrestrials, including Salak, come to Kyle Rayner and the Green Lantern of Earth. The earthly Green Lantern was the only remaining Green Lantern at the time since Parallax had destroyed the Green Lantern Corps. They tell Rayner about Hal Jordan's adventures and the crash of Signet Dawn on Mogo. Once again, a team of 6 is formed and they leave for Mogo to rescue the crew members from the wrath of the Xenomorphs. Upon reaching Mogo, they find the ship and inside its hull they meet the first officer of the ship named Crow. She tells them that the Xenomorphs took away all the 37 crew members but left her for some unknown reason. They all get attacked by Xenomorphs who take away everyone apart from Salak, Crow, and Rayner. To make things worse, when Rayner attempts to save one of his team members, his power ring falls off into the shaft. Later, they head out to find their companions, only to discover Crow's entire crew cocooned while 4 of them were killed by chestbursters. The Xenomorphs attack once again and Salak gets separated from Crow and Rayner. They come across a giant chamber with a Xenomorph queen inside it. Furthermore, they find Rayner's 4 companions cocooned and his power ring lying on the floor. Crow creates a distraction by firing blindly while Rayner leaps for his ring. He manages to secure his ring, and after a tough battle, he slays the Xenomorphs, finishing off what Hal Jordan had started. Sometimes the past does haunt us, and the legacy of our predecessors looms large, no matter what. Unfortunately, Rayner lost Salak in this ordeal only because Hal showed compassion where he wasn't supposed to. Number 8. Buffy the Vampire Slayer. In space, no one can hear you slay. Buffy has been meaning to take a vacation for a long time now, but all the slaying never allows her the time. She finally finds an opportunity and goes to space with her old-time pal Spike for a spacecation, hoping that she would see a supernova, a comet, or something spectacular. But all she witnesses is a bunch of Xenomorphs bent on slaying the Slayer. Buffy had come prepared. She had packed her belongings and was more determined than the giant Xenomorphs. Number 9. Aliens vs. Predator. This 5-issue comic is practically the godfather of all Aliens and Predator crossovers ever. Written by Randy Stradley, it was published by Dark Horse Comics in 1990. The protagonist of the story, Machiko Noguchi, later appears in Aliens vs. Predator War and Aliens vs. Predator 3 World War. References to this comic have been made later in Aliens vs. Predator Duel and Aliens vs. Predator Blood Time. Although it is the first crossover comic between aliens and predators, a short story by the same name was published in 1989. The story revolves around the ranching colony planet of Ryushi. The lives of the colonizers are devastated when a predator mothership brings xenomorphs to the planet for the ceremonial blooding ritual. Machiko Noguchi was the daughter of a wealthy father and an extremely loving mother, but after a tragic incident, her father commits suicide. In his dying breath, he asked Machiko to regain family honor. Young Machiko made it her life's only ambition to live up to her father's last wish. She soon joins the Chigusa Corporation and climbs the corporate ladder. Ultimately, she is asked to lead a ranching colony on planet Ryushi. The planet had 2 suns, which made the climate extremely hot and arid and life very difficult. The colonists didn't know that Ryushi was an age-old hunting ground for Yautja hunters who were returning to the planet for their blooding ritual. Prosperity Wells gets attacked by a Yautja hunting party, and the xenomorphs are unleashed. Deshande, aka the Broken Tusk, was a Yautja leader who would lead unblooded Yautjas to hunts to complete their blooding rituals. On board, the Predator mothership was a xenomorph queen, whose job was to lay eggs for the hunt. The facehuggers that emerged from the eggs impregnated Ryushi animals called Rinths. The Predators expected to face xenomorphs on Ryushi. Instead, they faced the human settlers who overpowered Deshande and incapacitated him. Naturally, the other Predators changed their target and started hunting down humans. Meanwhile, an alien hive quickly comes into being as the Xenomorph Queen lays a royal ovomorph that birthed a Xenomorph Queen on Ryushi. The Predators continued their assault on the settlers while the Xenomorphs began their own massacre. The humans fall prey to these 2 epic killer races. Broken Tusk is finally freed with the help of a doctor and Machiko. Deshande was unaware that a human colony was residing there, and when the xenomorphs started massacring them, Deshande takes it upon himself to be their savior as he felt responsible for the annihilation. He sided with Machiko, and together they attempted to destroy the hive. Machiko fights valiantly against the xenomorphs and gains the Yautja honor as she kills the Xenomorph Queen by means of sheer resolve and skills. Deshande later blooded her with xenomorph blood, and she becomes one of the few humans ever to be admitted into the Yautja Society. You may want to check out our video titled 8 Crazy, Brutal, but Elegant Female Predators, Yautjas, Backstories Explained in Detail for more stories like Machiko Noguchi's. We'll leave a link in the description. Number 10. Overkill, Witchblades/Aliens/Darkness/Predator. This 2-issue comic was published in 1999 by Image Comics, Top Cow Productions, and Dark Horse Comics. It was followed by a sequel titled Mindhunter in 2000. The comic begins with the xenomorph attacking gangsters in a warehouse. The police arrive only to find mutilated corpses. Meanwhile, Jackie Estacado interrogates a local criminal named Cake. After retrieving the information that he needed, Jackie injures Cake but leaves him alive. Outside, Jackie meets Sarah Pazzini, who is also investigating murder sprees by Colombian gangsters. Sometime later, Jackie and Sarah leave together while a predator watches them. Jackie reveals that something has been affecting Darkness, and both of them decide to find out what's causing this and the murders. It is made known that a predator has been unleashing a xenomorph on gangsters, and Cake orders his men to get Jackie. Sarah and Jackie pick up the trail of a predator. They reach a possible crime scene only to get attacked by a xenomorph. Sarah slashes its arm and the xenomorph flees the spot, but Jackie follows and catches up to it. Before he could do any harm to the xenomorph, he gets flashed by a bright light and momentarily loses his powers as Darkness. When he comes back to his senses, he notices the predator standing right in front of him. Sarah arrives and slashes the predator's arm in addition to destroying his spear. The wounded predator makes a run for it. Later, the police interrogate Jackie about the incident, but it seems that he doesn't really know what happened because he was incapacitated. Meanwhile, Sarah wonders if Darkness and Witchblade have ever faced the Predator and the Xenomorph before. The creatures once again attack Jackie and Sarah. The Predator manages to kidnap Jackie and leave Sarah with the Xenomorph. But Sarah manages to kill the Xenomorph and is approached by Cake, who asks her to show him to Jackie, and she obliges. When Cake, his henchman, and Sarah reach the Predator's hideout, they get assaulted by the hunter. The Predator attacks Sarah with a plasma caster, which enrages Jackie, and he rips the beast apart. However, the Predator manages to send a homing signal to his clan, and they turn up to take away their fallen comrade's corpse. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.